And
Oh,
so,
wait. This is the very first time. I had no idea.
Where have you been? I've told the story all the time. Oh, yeah. Of course, a 17-year-old making decisions about,
Biscuits.
based on biscuits. Heck yeah. And
Okay.
I do not regret it.
Today on the Badass Leaders Podcast, we're joined by Dr. Raheem Beyah, Dean of the College of Engineering at Georgia Tech. With nearly 25 years at Georgia Tech, a school that is near and dear to my heart, Raheem has led groundbreaking programs in cybersecurity, AI, and interdisciplinary research, while co-founding a successful industrial cybersecurity company. I wanted to have Raheem here just because I swear every time I'm in a meeting with him and I hear him lead with the humility that he has, I'm blown away. I'm constantly thinking I want to be more of a leader like him. And so to have him in the studio today was amazing. So welcome to this week's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast, where I, Angela Gill-Nelms, sit down with industry experts for candid conversations about the challenges and joys of leadership. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Now let's dive in and get ready to scale your company, grow your brand, and unlock your full badass potential. Raheem, welcome to AGN Studios and the Badass Leaders Podcast.
Good to be here.
We have known each other for several years and become friends, and so it's really amazing that I finally get the opportunity.
It's been a while, yeah.
So why don't you say hello to the audience and maybe tell them a little bit about who you are as a human being.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm Raheem Beyah. I am currently Dean of Engineering at Georgia Tech. Been in this role for about 5 years. Never thought that I would be in this role. I'm born and raised in Atlanta, went through the Atlanta public school system. Almost went to Georgia Tech undergrad, and I've told this story so many times. I didn't go primarily because of my grandmother's biscuits. And
wait. This is the very first time. I had no idea.
Where have you been? I've told the story all the time. Oh, yeah. Of course, a 17-year-old making decisions about,
biscuits.
Based on biscuits. Heck yeah. And
okay.
I do not regret it. And back then, I could eat them. I could just eat them nonstop without any problems. Now, you got it. But, oh, yeah.
Wait, I have to hear more. You can't. Maybe we should pause and make people listen longer.
Right.
No, keep going.
So I'll tell you. So I used to spend every summer with my grandmother.
Okay.
And she's in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay.
And so I would, from like 5 to 12 until I started working or whatever, I would spend my summers there. And so she was just amazing, just the best cook ever. And so even as a kid, I would see like the colleges and it would be Wake Forest. And I'm like, hey, Grandma, when I go to college, I'm 7. Like, I'm going to go to college near you. That's all I was thinking.
Right.
And by the time it was time to actually go to college, it's like, oh, well, what do I do? And so I ended up going to North Carolina A&T. It's a great engineering program. I applied to Tech, got accepted, but I was like, I'm ready to leave Atlanta. And in addition to going to another good engineering program, Grandma's 30 minutes away in biscuits, right? It's brilliant. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, you know what this is hysterical. You're now the second person in a week that I know that got accepted at Georgia Tech and did not go. I don't know, did I introduce my cousin to you at the game on Saturday?
I don't think so, because it was a lot going on. Yeah.
It's hard when you're popular like you are. But so I take my cousin has a new startup in robotics.
Oh, nice. Yeah, cool.
No IP, but doing robotic automation.
Okay.
I'm super excited about this for him.
Yeah.
We have a very entrepreneurial family.
I see.
And so I invited him to the game.
Okay.
And then he suddenly tells me he grew up in Griffin as well. He was the same age as my younger brother. Yeah. And my younger brother went to Tech. Yeah. Three of the 4 of us went to Tech. One went to Georgia Tech Boston. And
Georgia Tech of the North. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I just find out that he got accepted into Tech.
Yeah.
But like you, he wanted to just get out of Georgia. So he went to Hampton-Sydney.
Yeah.
And then he told me he got accepted twice because then he applied to transfer as a computer science major.
And he didn't.
And changed his mind and stayed there. and so I'm learning this for the first time while I'm introducing him to President Cabrera and stuff.
Right. I applied twice and said nah.
Exactly. Can you imagine the look on my face? Okay, but you came to your senses. So were the biscuits really good during that period of time?
Biscuits were fantastic. I hate that we don't have a recipe. I really hate that. But the biscuits were great. So I enjoyed A&T. It was wonderful. I wanted to go to grad school, and one of the many mistakes I've made in my life, even though it worked out, I'm thankful, I applied to one graduate school, right? And it was like,
Oh,
well, hey, I want to go to Tech. I want to go back to Atlanta. I'm sure they want me. I guess that was the reasoning. And so I tell students now, like, look, I love Georgia Tech. Apply to multiple places.
right.
And then choose Georgia Tech, right?
Right.
But don't do that. So I came back to Tech for grad school, and I never really left.
Okay, but you are a double jacket, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did a master's and PhD.
This is why. This is why. So you would have been a triple. You would have been a
I would
triple
have been.
jacket.
I don't know though. I might have got my butt kicked so hard the first time that I might have switched to something else.
I think it was easier back when we went to school here, though, than it is now.
So I don't doubt that, but undergrad was tough. It was really tough. Partly because there's like the full, at least back then, it was like the full spectrum of grades. Where in grad
right.
school,
Oh, yes.
usually A, B, C, maybe, and C was like an F, right? C
Yes,
is an
C
F.
is
but
an F.
but you could, and I would tell grad students, I'm like, look, dude, don't take an undergrad class. Like you could actually get an F, like a real F,
Right.
Not like a CF, but a real F, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just learning this because
Yeah.
I'm teaching a master's class at Emory.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's a brand new program,
Yeah.
and so hence brand new syllabi. Oh, for the love of all things.
Ooh, fun.
Oh, another thing, like, why did I say yes to this? And then when we started talking grading scale,
Yeah.
I had no idea about
Oh, yeah.
this whole, and I was educated.
Yeah, no, I remember I was told back then, again, decades ago, like you had to earn an A and you had to earn a C.
Yes.
That's pretty much. Now, I knew a few faculty members that gave D's and F's, even to graduate students, which were pretty bad,
Yeah. Well, I think the beauty of, we have 8 students in this cohort,
Yeah.
and none of them are going to deserve a C. They're
Yeah.
really bright and brilliant. So,
Yeah.
okay. So you came back to Georgia Tech. So did she mail you biscuits is what I wanted. My grandmother used to mail me cookies
No,
in
so the
college.
biscuit supply ran out.
Oh, no.
Other than holidays, obviously, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, I would go in and stock up on biscuits. And so, but yeah. So I came back to Tech, did a master's, actually worked part-time doing the master's. So I worked at Anderson Consulting. So I did a lot of internships. It was, Accenture now, but a bunch of internships with them. And I decided to like, hey, why not just, keep working? I need the money, number one.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I'll see if I can kind of work while I'm doing a master's, which was not a smart thing to do. But when you need the money, you just do those things. And so I did the master's, worked part-time at Anderson, and decided to go full-time with Anderson. So I finished my master's, and I went to go work for them. It was really neat. They hired me as an experienced analyst. So they sort of stapled together all my internships and actually hired me as an experienced hire, which was really cool. Yeah, I had a year. And, at a consulting firm, a year is like 5 years. Right?
Yeah, they work you to
Oh,
death.
they do. And
Yeah.
you learn a lot about leadership really early on.
Yeah.
And so I did that for almost 2 years, and it was, and that's one of the things that Bud and we had in common, that we both had Anderson. Of course, he was at a very different level, but it was something that I really felt, at least early on, that I wasn't as challenged as I wanted to be.
Okay.
And so I said, hey, you know what? Let me go back to grad school, and I wanted a terminal degree. I tell folks it was like an early life crisis, right? And so like, oh my God, what do? I got this master's, and I'm working, and what do I do with my life, right? And so I said, okay, I'll go back to grad school. Figured if I had a terminal degree, then I would have more agency. I think I was searching for money because we didn't really have any. So I was like, hey, if we can get money, maybe this will solve all the problems that I ever had, right? And of course, we all know money does not solve problems. And so I started really looking for agency and just more control over my career and future. And so I decided to look at, I thought about going to law school. I thought about going to med school. I called my cousin who was in med school at Baylor at the time. And I remember saying, hey, man, I'm thinking about going to med school. What do you think? Oh, it's great, man. I love it. And he was, and so I said, well, dude, I don't really like blood. Oh, me either. It's all good. Oh, he's a plastic surgeon now, right? So needless to say, I didn't do that. And I chose the easiest path to start a program, not the easiest path in a program, but to start a program. Back then, Georgia Tech would allow, if you finish your master's in good standing, half-page readmission form. What was your GPA, your GTID, or whatever it was? When do you want to start? It was no test. I don't even think there was an application fee. Oh, this is great. Let's do this PhD thing.
Wow,
and that's
sign
how
me
I started
up.
back with a PhD. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what did you get each of your degrees in?
So undergrad was double E, so electrical engineering, and then master's electrical and computer engineering, and same thing with PhD. Yeah.
So you took the path of least resistance, and it's probably the only time in your life you've lived a path of least resistance, because I know now the work that you do has a lot of challenges, especially in this day and age.
Sure.
So, but you teed off a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that you're one of few true Atlantans.
Yeah.
And you grew up in the public school system here, and then, transitioned into college and came back. What do you think, especially looking at where you're at now, what do you think that experience brought to you?
Yeah, the folks, every time I have some sort of accomplishment, I always shout out the Atlanta public school system, and it's because they really laid the foundation for everything that I've accomplished. I mean, I grew up in not necessarily the best area, and we had so many amazing teachers and principals. I mean, I would walk to the MARTA station, back in the day, and I would see, like a Saturday or a holiday, and I would see like the principal's car. I would see teachers' cars like in the parking lot at night. I mean, just the dedication that they had to us, and it was a bunch of kids that were didn't have resources, right? Mm-hmm. And but they didn't give up on us, and they did everything that they could to make sure that we would be successful. And so I always start everything with like thank you to the Atlanta Public School System, to the principal, Sam Hill, my math teachers that were there. I talked about working while doing a master's.
Yes.
I do a lot of stuff in parallel. And I started that actually in high school. I tested into like a lower math, whatever that was at the time, which meant that I would graduate at pre-calculus, not calculus, right? Okay. And of course, I didn't know or care at 7th and 8th grade, like whatever. But as I started getting more like 11th grade, closer to finishing, I'm like, well, okay, I think I want to be an engineer. And from what I've heard, engineers start with calculus. And so I want to have had calculus before I go wherever and take calculus. But again, I wasn't on schedule to do that. Right. So I don't know how I got this idea. I have no idea. But I went to the chair of the math department, Ms. Woolfolk, and I said, look, and by that time I had been doing well, and they knew that I kind of had a reputation for doing really well. I said, hey, Ms. Woolfolk, so I know this is going to be strange, but I want to be an engineer, and I think I need to have had calculus before I do it in college. And I was like, frankly, look, if I'm going to fail it, I might as well fail it here for free. Why not, right? So she was like, well, you're taking pre-calculus now. You can't take calculus until after. I said, well, look, I want to do both at the same time. And she was like, that's crazy. We've never done that before. I hadn't either.
So that is not the path of least resistance, in case you were wondering. Okay.
No. But I convinced her. She believed in me. And sure enough, I took pre-calculus and calculus at the same time. Did so well in calculus that they said, well, because they also had AP calculus, right? And they were like, well, look, we want you to just sit for the AP calculus exam. I'm like, but I didn't take. Right. I'm taking pre-calculus and regular calculus. Right. And so they had me sit for the exam. I got whatever the number was to test out of calculus in college. And so, so that's how I started this sort of path of like parallel things. And I've been doing that actually too much my entire life.
I have done similar paths.
Why am I not surprised?
People are like, you're insane, you're that. But you know what's funny about calculus, about math? Okay, first off, you know how you have those nightmares? They're always the same, right? You go to school with no clothes on, or you.
I don't think I had that one.
Or the other one is.
You oversleep the exam?
Oversleep.
Oh, yeah. I have those all the time.
Or you get, and for me, it's always math. What it is it's that I am close. I had this the other night. It reminded me of it. I'm close to the end of the semester, and I realize I haven't gone to a single math class. There's not, and like either last night or the night before, I had this dream. I was telling someone, but I'm not going to graduate this semester because I'm not going to pass math, and I'm going to have to. And then I woke up and I was like, oh, thank God, I've always passed math.
I made it. This is good. This is good. Yeah.
But one of the things, going back to the math piece, and at Georgia Tech, when I was at maybe a fourth year, and I used to mentor incoming freshmen, I would tell them, like, look, I don't care how many hours you have in AP Calculus. Yep. Take Calc 1 again.
Take Calc 1, absolutely.
Worst case, it's an easy A. It will be the only easy A you would get.
And you need it.
Right?
You'll need it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Instead, people go into Calc 2 and then they fail. And they wonder,
I say that. I say that today.
Yeah.
Today.
Okay, listeners.
Yeah.
Tell well I mean, AP classes are great. I
Yeah.
had AP psychology,
Sure.
fine, that was great.
Yep.
They're those things. But if it's a core that's going to be a building block, and
Yeah.
it's just a different experience.
Yeah,
then,
yeah, and college is not just about working hard; it's also about being strategic,
Right.
And this is how you end up being strategic. And it's nice to have an easy A at a place like a Georgia Tech, right? Because
Right.
it's going to be that's
Only
it. This
easy
it.
A.
It doesn't
Right.
matter what it is. This is it. So you need this, especially you're just adjusting to college and all that stuff. So I mean, there's no rush. I mean, the real world is not that great. Take your time, and I would absolutely take calc again. Yeah,
No,
and that's what I did. That's what I did too. In
did
undergrad.
you?
I sure did. And it was a wonderful easy A. It was great.
You know what I did? When I tested, because I first went to school at UAB, and I did not test into calc because they had you take a test, right? So I tested into like pre-calc or something like that.
Yeah.
And I got an A in calculus in high school.
Sure.
I mean, I did really well in school. And I at first was horrified. I was like, this is so embarrassing. Trust me, when I graduated with highest honors at Georgia Tech at the end, I did not care about that.
I don't think you went back. I think you were like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. No problem at all. Okay, so I love that. So when you're looking at the foundation of just where you came from, and especially the things that we think about for Georgia Tech, that we would like to have students from every single county. I love actually that pre-calculus comment there.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've had conversations about we're going to have some students who apply who won't have taken 1,000 AP credit hours, and we still want to figure out ways to get the best of the best.
And we do, which is great. I mean, I love how in terms of our admissions process, we evaluate you relative to what you have access to, and there are all kinds of kids that are at smaller schools or schools in rural Georgia that may have one AP class or no AP classes, and that's totally fine. And we absolutely bring tons of those students into Georgia Tech, and they do very well. And so I love that strategy of, not biasing towards, kids that are attending the best private schools in the city, but like kids from all over in every county in our state.
Yeah, that's super special. And I know a core at who you are as a human being as well. We'll talk about that a little later.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing that I did not know about is that you dreamed of being an astronaut, but you ended up in computer engineering.
Yeah.
So what is it about technology and perhaps video games that drew you in and kept you motivated?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked me why did I stop wanting to be an astronaut. Because I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer. It's funny. I have to send you this picture.
You still want to be an astronaut is basically what it is. We'll tell Mitchell that. Maybe you could
so this is funny. Like, it would have fizzled anyway because I fly all the time and I don't like flying. So that probably would have ended the astronaut career. Like I'm diamond, been diamond, will be diamond, but I'm not a huge fan of flying, right?
Okay.
But I have this really cute picture of me as a kid, maybe like 7 years old, and like somebody made this astronaut outfit for me. I was killing it. It was great.
Right.
But I don't know what happened. But so back to my grandmother. She is, so while eating those biscuits, she sort of planted the seed with technology, not knowing it, right? So she bought me my first video game system, the Atari 2600, which was like life altering.
Right? Wow.
Yeah. Pitfall. Oh my God. Oh, love it. So she did that for like my, like I don't know, eighth birthday or something like that. But when I would spend the summers with her, she was a retired school teacher. And so she would check out these computers because they didn't need them in the summer.
Right.
And so I had access to like an Apple IIe computer.
Wow.
And so that's when I started sort of hacking and playing. And so my mom would send me out of Atlanta, which was good because Atlanta honestly was not the best environment for me at the time. And put me in this wonderful environment where my grandmother would check out these computers. So I would hack on these computers and then also play these video games. And while playing these games, I would, you play a game and then you see like a vehicle. I was like, oh man, it'd be really cool if you could like drive a vehicle one day in a game. Oh my God, it'd be awesome. So you start thinking about, well, what enables that? And that's software. If you change the software, you can do that. Or, well, what about if I could have better graphics? What if we can make it less pixelated? Well, that's going to be primarily in your hardware, right? And so after I of course, looking back, that's how I realized, like, well, wait a minute, like this gaming really took me to computer engineering, and that's kind of how I got in the field, and I've been in it ever since.
So funny. I got into software development a very different way. I wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And when Ryan Jones, when I worked at Emory Healthcare running clinical research there, and Ryan Jones came to show me the start of Florence Healthcare.
Yeah.
And I said to him, hey, there's a huge need for advancement in clinical research, but
Sure.
what you've built will not work, because that's how I roll. And I said, but if you build these things, I was being recruited to go to Silicon Valley to
Yeah.
run some medical device companies.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll use your software. And he said, oh, you're leaving Emory. Come work with us. And I laughed out loud because I knew nothing about software. But hey, if you're passionate about something you're doing, you
You'll
can
figure it out.
learn
Yeah.
just about anything.
That's
And
right.
I love software now.
Yeah,
It's a passion
yeah.
of mine. Okay, so I want to talk about mentoring and community programs because I know this is another thing that we both have in common. So you've been deeply involved in mentoring and community programs. What role has mentorship played in your personal and professional development?
Yeah, well, mentoring, it is something that's just core to who I am, and it's because I've had so many mentors throughout my entire life and at every stage in my career. I mean,
Are there any
from
you want to
high
shout
school.
out?
Yeah. I mean, my calculus teacher, Miss Mills, in high school. Again, and sort of the fundamental, excuse me, the theme is they see something in me that I didn't know existed, right? And then they pull it out. And
That's what great mentors and
absolutely
coaches
extract
do.
it. Oh yeah, that's exactly what happened. And every stage, I remember I was at A&T as an undergrad, and I came to A&T from fairly humble means and just not really being exposed to much. And I remember taking a sociology class, and Dr. Claiborne Thorpe, I will never forget him. And I remember him asking, he was like, all right, so what do you guys think with your, like the most money you will ever make, like in your life? What are your majors and what do you think? And so I raised my hand, and he's like, all right, son, what's your major? I said, well, I'm an electrical engineering major. It's my first semester. Okay, what's your number? I said, well, I mean, this is a stretch, but I'm thinking maybe $30,000. That's what I'm hoping. And so I'm so serious, right? I'm just like, $30,000. And he
And
was
what
like,
year was this?
This was 94.
Okay.
And I can still see
'Cause
his
we're the
face.
same age.
No, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah. So he was like, no, son, no. And so from that point on.
Your bar was like here.
I mean, like lifetime money. Like not like
Right.
what you're going to make,
When you
working.
graduate.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like that's what I knew, and that was a big number for me at that
Right,
time.
right.
And so he kind of took me under his wing and mentored me. He even sort of made me. I was taking a class. I ended up being like a TA in the class while taking the class. Don't ask me how it happened.
Is that like
that was in the 90s. All kind of things happened. Okay? So
We did talk about breaking rules.
This is the 90s, right? So we don't do this at Georgia Tech. But yeah, I mean, and so I spent lots of time with me, and so it was interesting because he sort of put me in this, like my first like leadership role, right? It was sort of this leadership role that was there, but he took me under his wing and built confidence and extracted so much that I didn't know existed and helped me. And same thing through college, people like Gary May and all these other folks, tons of people. And when I say mentors, it's plural.
Yes,
Right? It's
yes.
plural. And every time I talk to students, I'm like, you need mentors, plural. You will need them at different stages in your career. You may sort of time out or age out of some. That's totally fine. It's good to have mentors that are peer mentors. Mentors do not need to look like you, right? In some instances, it's
I
going to be
actually
really hard
prefer
to
when
do
they
that.
don't look like
Yeah,
you.
yeah, exactly. And you'll need different mentors for different things, and you might call them, and you need to be very thoughtful about using their time and how you
Yes.
engage them. And also like to contrast sort of, like champions and mentors. And, champions are usually ones that usually have skin in the game, not just giving you advice. And advice is great, but they're also connecting you with people, getting you lined up for this promotion. And if it doesn't work out, it's partly on them as well.
Right,
And so
right,
I've had a number of champions and mentors. And so I feel obligated to do the same for folks that come behind me. So I mentor tons and tons of undergraduate, high school students, undergraduate students, faculty members, academic leaders, all that. And it's super important to me to do that.
I wrote a blog post because I believe in mentors too, and
Yeah.
also about having them in different categories
Yep.
in different areas.
Yep.
So I wrote a blog post that talks about you have the ones that are in like the locker room.
Yep.
Your fan club, which I can't remember what I termed that, and then the other one is your boardroom.
Yep.
Right. So who to go to based on their skill set.
Yep.
And Bud is one of my mentors.
Oh,
and
yeah.
One of the things I love about him, I
Yeah.
want mentors who aren't going to say what I would say to myself. Like,
Right.
seriously, I just talk to myself if that was the case, right? And Bud has no problem of
Oh,
saying,
yeah.
no, you
Yep.
should not do this. And I
Yep.
love that. I think that is really important. I haven't told very many people this story. This just recently happened. I actually got my seat on a return plane
Oh,
upgraded. Have you heard? Did
yes.
I tell you this
You
story?
did, but you should share it
Did I
again for
say
the
it again?
audience. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
got it upgraded from the back middle seat to up in front of Comfort Plus.
How did you get in the back middle seat in the first place? Okay.
Because I work at Emory University and you have to book through their agency and it doesn't allow you to select your. I was horrified.
Oh boy, yeah,
Anyways,
yeah,
I'm at the gate
yeah,
and I always fly wearing Georgia Tech gear. Always.
yeah. It's always good to do, especially when we're winning.
Yep. Exactly, right?
I
Go
love-
Jackets.
yeah.
So I'm standing, waiting at the gate. I'm wearing my Georgia Tech gear.
Uh-huh.
This gentleman comes up to me and he says something about it. We start talking. His daughter is applying for aerospace engineering.
Yeah.
And so I said, hey, I serve on the College of Engineering. I'm really tied in at Georgia Tech. I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah.
And I would love to see her because we need more women
Yeah.
in aerospace engineering. I said, I
Absolutely.
would love to see more females, So he starts telling me about her at first. And then he starts giving me her grades and all these things. And I said, okay, wait, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Every applicant is going to have that.
Yep.
And he said, well, would you be willing to talk to her and mentor her?
Mhm.
And I said, yes,
Yeah.
because really what we're looking for at Georgia Tech is we're looking for grit. We're looking for evidence of leadership. We're looking for an opportunity where you've overcome something that was hard for you, in addition to all those other things.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking to know that you want to advance the human condition,
Yeah.
right? And so I said, sure, and I said, also, I'm good friends with Mitchell, who's the chair of AE.
Yeah.
I'll let you talk to him as well. And somehow the conversation came up and he was like, you know what? Why don't you take my seat? It's like the best thing about mentoring. But I did talk to her and who knows what will happen in that instance. But it's great to be able
that's
to
great.
be somewhere and try and help people understand also the values that Georgia Tech has is
Yeah.
that we are looking for the brightest, but
Yeah.
we're looking for future leaders.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, evidence of progress and service, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's exactly what we want to see. It's funny. So last time I gave up my seat was because my daughter was when we were taking her to school, and my wife and I had these nice upgraded first class seats because again I travel all the time,
Right.
And so we were sitting there, and she was like, "So, Dad, I don't have a because we had her reservation was on a separate ticket
Okay.
because it was one way. We were dropping her off, and so she wasn't connected to us.
Right.
And so she was like, "Am I in economy comfort?" I'm like, "No, I'm not paying for economy comfort. You're in Maine, sweetheart." And so
Right.
it turns out she was like in the middle seat, like in the back of
Like me.
Yes. And so Kali and I got on the plane. We're like, "All right, love you, baby. See you later." And so we were on the plane, having drinks and getting ready. And so she boards the plane. I was like, you know what? She's on her way to college. It's a big deal. She's a little nervous. I'll let her sit by Mom. And so I got up, but I didn't know her seat was so bad. I think I might have been like, well, no. So I got up and I went back to the back, and I was in a middle seat. See?
I love it. Well, I would say that is what do we say? The progress and also
That's progress and service right there.
that is service. That is service right there. I love that. Okay, so can you share, in thinking about the things that you've done, a formative experience at either universities that's really set the stage for the leader that you've become today? Because people can be great mentors and great champions and perhaps struggle in leadership in other areas. And I think being able to be all three is
Right.
very special. So can you talk about the leadership part?
Yeah, absolutely. So the example I gave at A&T was Dr. Thorpe, and that's certainly one example that really helped me. But I'll give you another one at Georgia Tech. My advisor, John Copeland, who is one of the best people I've ever met, ever known. One of the things that I learned working with him was not just like how to be a good advisor, but just really being a good human, a good person, and that the advisor-advisee relationship is much more than writing papers, much more than a thesis. I mean, it really is about like lifting up and supporting your students in every single way. And a couple things. He was the first investor in my company, right? And so I still talk to him every week, right? I mean, like the advising continues. Like I graduated,
Wow.
decades ago, right? And he's
right.
still like my advisor. He was the first person, about 15 years ago that I saw at my father's funeral, right? I mean, so like that's the type, and so I tried my best to really mimic, the way that he led and that he supported me and all the students, as with my PhD students, but also with chairs and faculty that I lead. That you really show up and you invest in them as a human, right? Not just sort of as a faculty member was a chair.
I love that, because the thing is that it takes a moment, it takes more energy to step back. And so for some of the people that I coach, for example, I have to step back and say, okay, their goals are not Angela's goals.
Right.
Okay? They are not Angela. They excel in other areas.
Yeah.
Where can I help bring out the excellence in who they are as a person?
Exactly.
And that's what I think advisors, especially the ones that are really good,
Yeah.
do really well. The ones that aren't just kind of follow a script.
Yep. For
And-
every different student, different person, and that doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't. It's not the best strategy in my opinion.
Right. I agree with you completely. Okay, let's talk about your diversity of experience.
Yeah.
So you talked about startup, right?
Yeah.
So you've worked across startups, corporate consulting, and academia. How do you approach the challenge of leading in such different environments?
Yeah, well, it helps to have an interest in these different areas, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm always like fascinated by all these areas. But I really approach it with humility. I mean, I walk in the door and really just sit to learn, right? And get as much as I can, and then ask lots of questions. And, by doing that, you be able to pull out the information that you need to contribute. And oftentimes you'll ask questions because you're coming in not being limited by the organization.
Yes.
And you ask these questions like, oh man, I hadn't even thought about this, right?
Yes.
Because folks were limited. And so humility and then questions, and that just helps advance the learning process.
You know what I have to say about questions?
Yeah.
Is that I have so many examples in my life where I've been sitting somewhere and everyone around me pretend or seems to know what the person's talking about,
Yeah.
and I don't
And they're
know.
just like,
So exactly, and so I asked
They
the
don't.
question, and then everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I wondered what." And
I'm so glad you asked that question.
so glad you asked that question. And I will say, I won't go into in depth about this question, but I had that situation
Yeah.
at the last GTAB board meeting
Sure.
where I really wanted to ask a question. I was really nervous about it, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask it.
Yeah.
And I asked the question, despite the fact, and I do still get nervous about conflict, but I love conflict. I asked the question. My heart was racing nonstop. However, the conversation in the room subsequent and the actions that we're going to take,
Right.
I just want to encourage people, like, questions are the best thing you
Oh,
can provide
yeah.
to a conversation.
Yeah. No, and especially, I mean, we've talked about this, but something that you're super passionate about, something that is very aligned with who Georgia Tech is.
Right.
It was like, yeah, ask that question, right? Yeah,
Right.
absolutely do it. And of course, even when we talked later, that somebody else came up to me and was, oh, I'm glad she asked that question because of, yeah.
Yeah. So if the listeners learn nothing else from now, they learn that get the recipe to the biscuits, ask the questions.
Oh, yeah.
And
In that order too.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
stomach full with biscuits, then ask the question.
I love it. Okay. So speaking about, we've talked a little bit
Yeah.
about the difference between champion, leader, mentors, all amazing. Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about what your perspective is, the differences between a leader and a manager, and how do you know which role you need to play in a particular moment?
Yeah. No, that's another really good question because I've been in a number of different leadership roles, and I've had direct reports with different levels of skill, and sometimes some you can just be a leader, but others you actually have to manage. And of course, I prefer the leadership piece because leadership is about it's about people, it's about inspiration and vision, right? And management is more about execution and processes and sort of directing people, and sometimes you have to do that. Like you absolutely have to do it. And so you go back and forth between leadership and management. But I much prefer leadership because that's where you get these really like fascinating ideas that people get. If you can just sort of point people in a direction, and they go off and do crazy things. For example, like the AI makerspace that we did. Right? I mean, it's because the chair of ECE is really strong leader, and he just likes to think about crazy things. Now, if I were managing him and sort of stifling that innovation, we would have never gotten, this sort of seed of an idea of the AI makerspace that I invested in and that now we have for the entire institute.
Let's talk. I mean, I wanted to dig in a little bit to AI because when I talk to people at other places, especially being lucky, being on the inside and hearing the early conversations when ChatGPT just came out. And we were asking the question at Georgia Tech, should we stop having the entrance essay? Should we not?
Right.
All the conversations. And one of the things that I share with people that I've been most proud of is that from day one, Georgia Tech was like, we're going all in AI. And we're going to work with AI leadership and ethical use of AI and how we can really equip our team members to use it to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, from your perspective, how do you feel that journey has been?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think were just caught by, I mean, at least the normal folks who are not AI researchers, were
Right.
like caught by surprise with like ChatGPT and the rise. And you had all these sort of things that happened at the same time that enabled this mass sort of deployment of AI. I remember the president being just super excited about, I mean, he was sort of probably the most bullish and the earliest adopter. And he would be running around with his phone like, hey, Raheem, look what I just did. I'm like, President Cabrera, really? This is what really, and so I think listening to him and others, I said, let me pay more attention to this. And you're right. We said we're going to go all in, and even and what I love about tech is that it's not just like academics. It's not just engineering. It's actually across all of our disciplines.
Yes.
And the director of admissions at the time was like, look, we're going all in with AI, and we're saying write your essays with AI. You know, I mean, like a bold, controversial statement. And I think his rationale was totally legit, which is like, look, certain groups have had access to support writing these essays, so let's democratize that. Now, don't go make up sad stories, right? But helping with grammar and things like that, sure. Why not? Why not do that? And so it was really interesting to say, well, what are we going to do? Because this is where it was one of those moments where you got to decide, like, if you don't jump in early, you will be left behind.
Yes.
And so we started thinking about, how do we make sure that all of our students ultimately are AI native? Like, I want to make sure, I've told folks over and over again, I want to stop talking about AI. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Like, nobody says, hey, I just used some physics today to solve this problem. Hey, guess what? I used the internet to solve this. No, you just
solve it, right?
You just do it, right? And so I want to obviate the discussion about it by making it just what we do. And so we launched about 2 years ago, as you know, this AI for engineering effort, and it had these three legs to the stool. One was AI minor, and in partnership with liberal arts, which is an excellent partnership because they brought the ethics piece. It's incredibly important for us to make sure if you're going to get a minor, we're going to put this stamp of approval and about your expertise in AI. The ethics piece is absolutely critical. We don't want to do sort of what we did with the internet, decades ago, where we were like, oh man. Oh, we should do security now. Like, no. Like decades later, like, no, we need to do ethics right now. The other leg is sort of a bunch of undergraduate courses, lower level courses. We've been teaching AI for decades at the graduate level, but like freshman, sophomore level courses that allow these students to see, how do you apply AI concepts to my engineering discipline? And so we rolled out about 8, 10 plus of those. And then this really neat concept of this AI makerspace. And so, tech is, we've always been like gritty and roll your sleeves up, and we like to build stuff. We like to make stuff. And that's who we've been since our founding. Like, that's who we've been. And so we have these physical makerspaces, like mechanical engineering has one, aerospace, ECE, and others, where you go in, you got a crazy idea, you just go and build this thing. Hey, I want to go create a guitar skateboard. Okay. Go to the mechanical engineering one and you go and do it. And we have resources for our students. And so we wanted to tap that same, creativity, but in this digital world. And so it was intentional that we labeled it a makerspace, right? To make sure it's the same sort of thing. They're going to be student run. These makerspaces are student run, student governed. And the idea is, well, look, if you got a crazy idea, you want to build a really insane LLM or computer vision model or navigation model, you go to the AI makerspace and then you can actually build that. But what's neat about it is, imagine the combination of these physical makerspaces and this virtual sort of AI makerspace. And so now you can go and build and design your drone and then download this vision model or navigation model from the AI makerspace. And so we're just right at the beginning. What I really love about this, and I'm so glad that we went all in because it was risky. I mean,
it totally was.
I bet a lot of money on that it was really a lot of money, a really strategic decision. But I remember about a month after it was released, I was at a dean's conference, and a dean at one of the premier places walked up to me, and she was like, "Raheem, I heard about this AI makerspace that you guys are working on. That's pretty awesome. We're gonna start working on something like that." And I was like, "Yes, that's why we did it. That's why we did it. Yeah. So it's been great. And so now the goal, all our students, not just engineering students, but all our students will be able to have access to real compute And now they're not solving these simple problems like how do you model on a road. They're modeling traffic in a city, in a state, like realistic problems. And it's still, I think, now still the most advanced, certainly most advanced supercomputer on our campus, but I think it's still the most advanced AI makerspace in the country.
Yeah. I bet that's the case.
Yeah.
I remember from that board meeting
Yeah.
when we had that conversation
Yeah.
about the essays and,
Oh, yeah.
and that conversation came up and we went back to the whole calculator thing and,
Right.
and all of these different things. And I remember Charles Isbell's comment that said, and that was back at the very beginning,
Yep.
AI will not replace people, but people who know how to use AI will replace those who don't. And so I love that investment. When I talk to the master's class that I'm teaching,
Oh, yeah.
I had to write an AI policy, but my AI policy is like, I want you to use it.
Yeah.
I've used it in your syllabus.
Oh, yeah.
And but the thing is that it goes back to when we're taught to solve problems, good engineers or good problem solvers are taught to also step back and say, does that make sense?
Right. Right.
It's the same
right.
thing with AI,
Yep,
right?
yep.
When you put something in and then having that knowledge or being trained to say, okay, hang on, let's take a step back
Right.
and see, does this make sense? You
Yep.
still utilize those same core problem solving
Exactly.
skills.
Exactly.
It just adds this level of creativity
Yeah.
and sparks your brain into areas it would have taken forever or you may never have gotten there.
Yeah, and you just do so much more. I mean, I'm much more productive. I'm able to get a lot more information. I mean, there's not an hour that goes by that I'm not querying ChatGPT for something.
So let's see. Let's talk about conflict.
Yeah.
I know both of us are terrified of conflict.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And we never have conflict.
Oh, yeah, exactly. What is conflict? No. So conflict is inevitable in any organization, as we
Sure.
know. So tell us how you handle conflict resolution, whether it's among faculty, students, or corporate individuals.
Yeah. Yeah, you get a lot of conflict, and especially like these leadership roles. I remember I got like and this happens probably once a quarter, like a 2-page email of, all the mistakes that you've made as a leader, right?
Yeah.
It's just sort of like, and so what I normally do, first of all, is not respond with a 2-page response, right? It's always like, hey, thanks for sharing. Why don't we grab coffee? And, I tell you, every time I've done that, I mean, we leave as good friends, or at worst, just neutral. Like, oh, okay, I understand your point. I understand your perspective. And I think it's important, especially now that, you have these discussions that might be tense with people coming from different positions. And so I usually say, look, let's meet, let's talk about it. Usually when it's face to face, you actually realize that you pretty much want the same thing. Right. I mean, this was like a faculty member that was complaining about something, and we left realizing that we were completely aligned. Now we had different approaches, right? Which is totally fine.
Right.
But like we wanted the exact same thing. So I thought it was good to do that. The other thing, especially in leadership, is because you're going to get conflict. That's what happens. But you and it's hard, but you can't take it personal.
Exactly.
You can't. I mean, it is often like the role that they're mad at. They're mad at the dean. They're not mad at Raheem. They're mad at the decision that the dean made is what, And so if you can separate, but sometimes it's hard, but if you can separate those two, so it's not personal, then you can get through these things.
I think, too, going back to what we said earlier about asking questions is also, when that comes up, taking a moment to ask questions, because then ask questions and then listen and respond with respect.
Exactly.
And when you can do that, you can have a healthy conversation about something where you're both coming from two very different angles.
Exactly.
But oftentimes you both really want something to be successful.
Yep.
You're just trying to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's usually the case. Even if it's like colleagues in other departments or whatever, we work with a bunch of different units to support the College of Engineering, and sometimes one unit may not be thrilled with some of the things that we have done or whatever. And I've just sat everybody down at one point because I'm like, okay, this is too much. And I started the whole discussion with, there was actually hundreds of people on this call. Like, let's start with, we all want the exact same thing for Georgia Tech. We want the best for our students, our faculty, and staff. That's like we all want that, right? Now, you have a different approach. But we need to set the stage with that. And the conversation went so much better just starting with knowing that you're here because you want the same thing that I do. Again, different approaches to getting there, but if you acknowledge that and you ask questions and have these discussions, things usually work themselves out.
Well, I think too, we're often so many times in our own silos,
Right.
and we don't understand that there is the picture is often way more complex
Yep.
than just one department,
Exactly.
one
Exactly.
program, one individual.
Right. Right.
And I know with challenges with funding and trying to decide what's going to happen at Georgia Tech, you've been very vocal about the fact that we are going to protect our faculty and our staff and our students.
Yeah.
And we want, at nothing else, we want to make sure they still have their jobs. They're
Yep.
still able to be successful. So
Right.
we're going to do that. And then everything else we can do is on top of that. But we're not going to take away the core of
So
taking
you got to
care of
protect
them.
our people.
Yeah.
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 Exactly.
I really admire that about you. You've been
Yeah.
very
Well,
strong on
thank
that.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so how do you approach building a culture of innovation and accountability in large institutions like Georgia Tech? And maybe share for the audience, I think a lot of people don't really understand how large of an institution Georgia Tech really is.
Yeah, well, we have 57,000 students now, about 11,000 faculty and staff members. We have about a $5+ billion economic impact on the state, so it's a pretty big operation. Innovation is, I've seen places that do it well, and I think we do it well. But it's because it's a priority. Like you hear leaders consistently talking. You hear the president talking about innovation, executive leadership, the deans, others. We talk about it. We prioritize. It's not like this side thing. Like, all right, we're going to do our job, and then by the way, it'll be cool if you can do something different. No. This is what we do. If you go, and there's a buzz, pun intended actually. There's a buzz around our campus, and you see people that are there like getting things done. If you go to Starbucks, and so as long as if you prioritize it and it's not a side thing, then you can do that. But you also have to give people space to innovate. And that goes actually to the leadership and management piece. I have 8 school chairs that report to me, and I firmly believe in strong school chairs. I think their school is their organization. It is not mine. It is their organization, and I see them absolutely as partners. And so I rarely do I send a message to their organization, and I give them their budgets, and they run their organizations very different from the others and different from how I run mine. But having that autonomy is what allows and encourages innovation. And so you'll see that they're doing funky things with advising over here, or somebody over here started with this new AI makerspace, or somebody's done this other research strategy, or this new way to partner with industry. Like all these things start to bubble up. And then once they are mature, then we can sort of do this sort of cross-pollination and share ideas. And so you got to have this ecosystem of innovation, and you got to be intentional about it. Accountability is equally important because when you give them this money, when you stay out of their business, you expect that they will make the right decisions, make fiscally responsible decisions, all these important decisions. And if they don't, you have to sort of quickly address that. And you especially with us, we have to always be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. We will always do that. And so you got to make sure that, if folks are getting a little off, that you quickly intervene and redirect them.
One of the things I was thinking when you were talking about that was the importance of trust in that equation. How do you exude and how do you build trust with your colleagues?
Yeah, no, you got to build trust over time, right?
Yeah.
And so you can sort of give them these. I mean, first of all, I'm very sort of thoughtful when I hire, let's say, a new school chair or an associate dean, because I'm going to rely on them and I'm going to trust them. And so I'm very intentional. I spend lots of time, interviewing them, lots of times with on-list, off-list references and others. But you give them these sort of small projects, if you will, or small opportunities to earn or lose trust, and they just over time they build that trust, and you do it pretty quickly, pretty rapidly. But once you have it built up, then that's when the fun starts.
Yeah. No, I love that. Okay, so looking back on your career, what leadership lessons would you pass on to the next generation of engineers and executives?
Yeah, it's funny. I wonder if I'm just getting older. but I think.
And don't say that. We're the same age.
Well, you wear it way better than I do. So how about that? No, I mean, I think. Well, like you probably experienced this too, right? I mean, when you're younger, sort of looking up at these leaders, if you will, you think that they just have it so together, and
Or they have all the right answers.
oh, I got all the right answers, like, and then you realize that, man, these people are just normal people, and they are sort of barely holding it together, just like everybody else. And so I would share that with, and it's funny, I've given, tweenage boy advice, to my son. The same thing, like, hey, dude, look, like, I know these dudes and I think they're cool, and these girls that you like that you're work, but they're just figuring out, just as nervous as you are. I promise they are. And I wish I would have thought, I'm sure I received that message. I probably couldn't internalize it, as a 25-year-old or 30-year-old, sort of leader in training. But being able to share that, look, these folks are just normal people. They're just trying to figure it out, just like everybody else. And it's totally fine to ask questions that might be perceived as not the smartest question, whatever. You got to do those things, and everything will be just fine.
Yeah, I love that, because we do look at other people through rose-colored glasses.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And hence why I love when individuals are willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
It's one of the reasons in my leadership style, I try and be as vulnerable as I feel is appropriate.
Right.
Because I want my team members to, trust me that if something is not going well, I'm going to be transparent about it.
Right.
But also see that I'm entrusting accountability and trust into them.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's also okay if they make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So I try and call out my own mistakes for that reason.
Yep.
Not that I like to make mistakes, but I do.
You make mistakes.
I do. Don't tell anyone. It's a secret. It's between us. It's in the vault.
All right, got it.
Okay, how do you personally measure success? Not just in terms of career achievements or the fact you've maybe made more than $30,000, but impact on people and communities.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate, as have you, in terms of success, and I've had a number of just really cool. I mean, I live in a world that I did not even imagine. I couldn't even imagine that it existed, and so I feel very fortunate to be where I am. So I've gotten to a point where it's not sort of my accomplishments at all anymore. I'm thankful. I feel very grateful for each of these accomplishments, but it's really, the people that I'm mentoring. Am I making a difference in the lives of, my colleagues, my coworkers, students at Georgia Tech? I mean, I don't, in my office, I don't have any awards or anything up. I have like thank you notes that's up from students, which to me way more powerful than
I saw
awards.
one when I was in your office recently. And I was like, I love that.
Yeah. I mean, because you never know what just like 5 minutes of your time. I mean, like you're just walking across campus, you're rushing somewhere, and like, hey, you have 5 minutes. That 5 minutes, 5 years later, somebody writes you a note like, that changed my trajectory, and now I've done this, and I've done this, and now I started a company that's, and it's like, oh my goodness. And so I look at, well, how have I helped others, and how successful have they been? And that's my focus in terms of success. How many, we did a STEM Saturday event about 2 weeks ago at Tech, which was super cool, and it gets at one of sort of my pet peeves that when I was growing up in Atlanta, and at least from my perception, Tech was not as involved in the community as I thought that it should have been. And, I want to make sure that we've done a ton better since then, but we have to be a part of the core fabric of our state and our city. We absolutely got to do that. And one way that I'm helping to accelerate that is by bringing kids on our campus. And so we had over McCamish, we rented out McCamish and brought like 1,000 students from the Atlanta area just to do all sorts of STEM activities. It was so awesome. I mean, before we got started, they were sitting in the audience, they were sitting in the stands, and we were like, who wants to do some STEM? And they were like, yeah! And I was like, oh my God, these are 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds. I mean, you thought it was a football game. I know. And so, so hopefully.
You should have given them all football tickets.
I know, that's a good idea. But hopefully that, sort of planted a seed in at least a couple of them that will later be an engineer, hopefully at Georgia Tech. So it's really the impact that you have on others.
Well, and I remember just recently,
Yeah.
I think it was at the board meeting I was just at a couple weeks
Yeah.
ago, where one of the individuals was talking about impossible. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
look at the impossible
Oh, yeah.
because we can totally do that.
Absolutely.
And encouraging these. One thing I don't want to forget about saying is
Yeah.
that the comment you were talking about mentors, and I try and encourage the audience, if someone has made an impact on your life, please go and tell them.
Yeah.
Because the times people, I remember when Mario Ball told me also at a college football game
Yeah.
at Tech, the impact I made on his life when he
Yeah.
was a student here.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, it was like 20 years ago.
Right.
And
right.
I was literally in tears. I
Yeah.
just, it blew my mind away because I see he's such a solid leader. He's
Right.
making such a big impact on the world and on the community. And the fact that, and also him doing Morehouse and Georgia Tech at the same time and those challenges, I never dreamed. And so I just want to encourage people, if someone
Yeah.
has impacted your life, tell them.
It means so
because
much.
It means so
It
much. And
means
it
so
gives
much.
us the energy
Yeah.
to keep going
To
forward.
keep going. That's
Yeah.
right.
Now, I will tell you,
Yeah.
my Georgia Tech awards are in my office over at Emory, but it's because some days I have hard days, and I think, can I do this?
Right.
And I look at those things and I say, I've done hard
yeah.
things before.
And I'm gonna do more.
I can do
I'll
more
do
hard
again.
things.
That's right.
But I love what I've seen in your office. Okay, so speaking of that, what does leaving a legacy mean to you?
When I think of legacy, and I'll center around Georgia Tech. I think about like one of the most impactful presidents at Georgia, and there have been tons, and there will be there'll be stories about the current president once he steps down. But I think about like Wayne Clough, right, who was just a statesman, and he did. He transformed Georgia Tech. Really transformed Georgia Tech. We wouldn't have Tech Square without this crazy, just out of the blue idea.
Right?
Like, what are you thinking? Right? It was crazy, and now it's like, oh my God, this was brilliant. And so, he made this impact on Georgia Tech and the city that people today, still decades later, right, many decades later, are still talking about this accomplishment, right? And so, it's for me, it's more of like, what are these things that you have done that made the place better?
Yes.
That you don't have to even champion, but that people later say, man, that was really cool what they did. But Peterson got us into the AAU, which is the highest sort of class of a research university, right? That was a big deal.
That was a big deal because it's invite only.
Oh my God, it is. Right, that's a
I know
big,
because I just
deal.
asked ChatGPT this weekend because I was at that conference and they were talking about R1 schools and AAU.
And then AAU above that, right?
And
it's like 70 something schools.
ChatGPT Scout.
Like, what is this AAU?
And I read and I had no idea. So what an accomplishment.
Big deal. But talk about legacy again. He was at that point. He was like, look, let me do these wonderful things for the institute. Not trying to build a legacy, but trying to do the right thing. And then of course, as you look back, it's like, man, what an impressive legacy.
Right. I think because I've asked a couple of people, I ask a lot of people about the legacy thing because I'm really big about building legacies. And I see some people hear that and they take this context of like, you want to be famous or you want to be, but it's different.
Yeah.
It is that, I strongly believe we only had one chance to live our life.
Yep.
And I want to make an impact.
Yep.
Right?
I want to make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I have to remember what the song is. There's a rap song that says something like you die twice, the first time when you pass away, but the second time when people stop mentioning your name. And
nice.
I love the idea of this ripple effect and the impact that you can maybe get out of your own comfort zone and get out into the world and try and make the world a better place.
Yeah,
and I know
that's
we're
right.
both passionate about that.
Exactly. Yeah, so for me, it's things like, it's not. Rankings are great, love it. Raising money, great, love it. Research, great, love it, right? But for me, it's like how many students now can see themselves at Georgia Tech because of some of the things that we put in place.
Yes.
Like from the STEM program that we did 2 weeks ago. Like, if seeing Georgia Tech as part of the fabric of our city. I'm very passionate, and as I know you are, about like student scholarships and access, and the fact that we've raised. The money is necessary for this, but the piece that's important is that we've raised so much money for kids that would not be able to go to Georgia Tech. They can now go to Georgia Tech, and it will transform their life, as we both know.
Yes.
And like lives from generations to come. Like that to me is impactful, and that's what's important to me in terms of legacy. That I was able to help more students get to tech, and that's physically seeing themselves on our campus, or can actually afford to attend a place like Georgia Tech.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was a transfer student, and Georgia Tech completely changed my life.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely changed my life.
Yeah.
And when people tease me, and now I know you tease me.
Yeah.
You tease me because
I do not.
You tease me because I'm so BME biased. I've heard
you
you
are
say
you are a little
I am a
BME
little
biased.
BME biased. I can't help they keep winning all the capstones and all
Well,
that
we're
kind
the
of
number one
stuff.
program in the country, so
I mean,
hey, hey.
I was just in Seattle,
Yeah.
as you know, and I had dinner on Friday night with a BME alum.
Okay.
And he actually told me something I didn't know. I was going to text this to you, but I thought I would just say it.
Okay.
Say it live. He told me actually what BME stands for. Do you know what it really stands for?
I do not.
So I mean, most people think it stands for biomedical engineering, which is badass.
That's what I thought that naively. Yeah.
He told me it stands for best major ever.
I tell you BME people. I tell you. Oh my God! Best major ever. I love it. No. But BME is I mean, the stuff that's happening in that unit. I mean, Alyssa's a fantastic chair, but every time I go, I do work in cybersecurity, and I think my stuff is cool until I go to BME, and I'm just like, you're doing like real stuff. Like, oh my God! Yeah. It's transformational stuff they're doing over there.
You know, the thing that I love a lot about BME, but one of the reasons I am very biased about it is that I see the leadership and because that discipline just requires the students to learn skills in so many of the other disciplines.
Right.
And I think if other universities and places can learn lessons from BME, it was going back to the problem-based learning classes where we had to start presenting in front of people and solving those real world problems early on. I think if I would love for other universities to pick that up as well, because those are the skills that I now see when I've in the past hired biomedical engineers and stuff is not just the depth, because people used to think, what are they going to do? They're not super deep in anything. And then it's just like, wait, they can go into any area and collaborate. And I think that's really powerful. And those lessons can be moved into other disciplines, and other schools. I think they're lifelong lessons that I would love to see because I really want to see more leaders in this world, obviously.
Oh, agree.
Point of this podcast.
Badass leaders.
Badass leaders.
Not just leaders,
Absolutely. So before we get into rapid fire, one of the things we've been talking about recently, because we were talking about the Holy Shift Biomedical Breakthrough Shaping Tomorrow podcast, which listeners, you should also subscribe to.
It's a great podcast.
One of the things is trying to help educate the world on the value and why we need to do research at universities and how it's really a key part of improving the world around us. What kind of thoughts would you give to the listeners on that?
No, I mean, it's, almost everything that we interact with. Everything from soap to lights to the cameras that's on right now to the way our food is prepared, all that stuff, the internet, which this is going to be streamed on, almost all that came from university research, right? It was from the federal government primarily funding university research. And then, decades later, and in many cases now it's much faster than that, it actually made it to the general public. And so our lives are so much better in so many ways, countless ways that we just don't even know because of university research. And if you just go back to BME, this is not exaggeration. They are literally curing cancer right now on our campus in BME. That is insane. That's happening right now.
Right.
And you talk about such a terrible evil disease that's touched somehow everybody.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like, why wouldn't we want more of that? Why wouldn't we want to accelerate that? Right. To have our loved ones here longer and in a lot less pain. And so everything that we have touched ultimately resulted from some sort of research lab in universities, maybe in industry, maybe some partnership. And so I think we should accelerate that, especially. Certainly for us as Americans, be able to participate in those things and use them. But we're talking about our national competitive, right? It's not just like for us to use, but we got to think about relative to other countries, we can't fall behind.
No. And I get so inspired just in running Biolocity and when I work with these brilliant people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on the calls and I say, okay, look, the only thing I'm bringing to this call is the business perspective and how I can help you improve your pitch and how I can help you build a stronger team.
Sure.
And I love doing that with them because then taking their scientific minds and what they're working on and helping accelerate the pace to get to the patient, the doctor, the clinician, the family that's going to be impacted by that. I mean, that to me is worth every single hour I'm not sleeping and every additional gray hair that I'm getting in this moment. But it is amazing, right? Because any of those that can actually change people's lives is something to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
Are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
I guess so.
Let's do it.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so what is one book, podcast, or resource that changed how you think about leadership?
Oh, I need to read this again. Leadership in Turbulent Times by Doris Kearns. I think it's Goodson. It is fantastic.
Never read it.
You got to read it.
Okay.
I mean, seriously. She basically chronicles 4 presidents, starting with Lincoln, and she talks about all of the challenges, the adversity. She kind of makes the case for leaders being not just born but also made. She talks about how she looks at these these presidents and show how they get to this point of adversity, and that changed the trajectory of who they were, which ultimately led to a presidency. But it's a brilliant book. She is fantastic. She's a historian, and she's written a number of different books. But that one has really taught me a lot. And again, it's time to read it again.
Well, okay. So out of the rapid fire. Sorry, Katie. Out of the rapid fire for a moment, because I remember with the challenges earlier this year, and I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this. But one of the statements that you made was, you know what, we're going to look at this challenge and we're going to say challenge accepted and figure out how we can not go back, but become more creative and move forward at a faster pace. And I think maybe even your knowledge in that area and reading some of that maybe lent to your mindset in that way. Because a lot of people really, when struggles occur, they shut down or become angry, and it's really a spirit of all based on fear, which is valid, right? But anger, a little hatred, frustration, and all of that negative energy holds us back. And I remember you, and I remember in a specific meeting watching you, and you said, you know what, this is what we have, so we're gonna figure out how to amplify and how to become better and stronger because of that.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, I remember during COVID, I was in another leadership role, at least in the beginning of it, and to your point, I noticed I had a bunch of sort of IRI, Interdisciplinary Research Institute directors that reported to me, and it was really interesting, this sort of bimodal thing that was happening, where you had some that just sort of curled up and it was tough, and it was this, I need to focus on me and my family. Totally fine. And you had others that were like, Superwoman, Superman shirt came out and like, we must do this, we must get PPE, we must do all these things. And so people take these different, strategies or approaches during a crisis, which both are totally fine, totally acceptable. It's the leader's job to, I love the Stockdale paradox, right? And so the leader has to absolutely acknowledge where we are. You got to acknowledge this is a very difficult time.
Because you can't dismiss
you
their
can,
feelings
you cannot
or
dismiss.
emotions.
No, because it's legit. It is legit. So we got to acknowledge it, and you have to point to the future and inspire hope. You have to give people hope, and that's a challenging thing to do in these very difficult windows. And that was my goal, was to absolutely not be dismissive, because I know that this is painful for people. It's very painful for people. I also wanted them to think about just sort of the future. And by the way, we as a country, as a people, as an institute, we have done hard things.
Yes.
And we've gotten through those hard things, and we've always come out stronger.
I love it. I love it. Okay, back to rapid fire. I can resist. Okay,
Yeah.
what is a habit that has contributed most to your success?
So this is going to be kind of cliche, but just hard work, right? Just
Ah.
working hard. And I'll tell you, I was at when I was interning at Anderson, I
Mm.
remember, and I always worked hard, but this sort of made me, kind of hone that craft. I remember this one guy, I would always notice that everybody went to him for all the answers. And I'm like, man, this dude must be brilliant. Like, he's awesome. I asked him, I said, like, what's the secret? Like, why is everybody coming to you all the time? He said, look, I just work hard. He was like, I'm here 7 to 7 every day. I'm here 7 to 7. And I'm like, wow. And so the next day, until the rest of the internship, I was there like an intern. I was there at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And turns out, guess who became the go-to guy? I mean, it was just like that. They saw me in, putting in the effort. Of course, you're more knowledgeable because you're there doing more stuff. But I've always thought, look, there may be people in the room that's smarter than me. That's fine, but you'll never outwork me.
I want to get teary-eyed about this. I remember in high school.
Yeah.
I had a brother that was a year older than me that went to MIT, and he was brilliant. Is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to make me so mad because he would always do his projects at the last minute. And I was nowhere near as intelligent as he was. He graduated co-valedictorian.
Yeah, wow.
I graduated 5th in my class because one weekend, this is a true story, 9th grade, one weekend I did not do 2 homework assignments. And I got 90s in those classes, and 90 was a B at that point. That's how I didn't graduate.
And you just went astray at that
I
point.
mean, my world was over. But I knew at that point that I could work hard.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to be as smart as him.
Yeah.
I could work hard. And like when I used to race Ironmans, I would say to people, like, look, I'm not going to be the fastest, but I'm not going to give up.
Mm-hmm.
Like that endurance and that fight and I love when I see that in people because I would personally rather have someone that has that. I think it's an ethical piece as well.
Yeah. It's the grit and fire in the belly.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm not doing Ironman. I'm not doing Ironman. Yeah.
On the list.
You've done it. I'm not doing it.
I've done it 6 times,
Oh,
but who's counting?
I mean, I've done it 6 times. I mean,
But also, this is a little bit of a leadership lesson for me. Is that I'm not going to be able to do another Ironman. I can't run anymore.
Yeah.
I got talked by Carolyn Yago into doing a half Ironman. We were going to do it together until she realized she has a graduation. She can't do it. So now I was doing it solo.
Yeah.
And then I started back running, and I started having foot problems. My foot doctor was like, "Your running career is over."
It's done. Yep.
And so I reached out to Ironman. They're allowing me to switch to a relay.
Okay, cool.
So I found a friend who was very happy to do the run for me. Okay, this is for a half Ironman.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I still need to do the swim and the bike. I'm working like 60 hours a week right now. Like I can't get both in. And the leadership part of it was that one, I listened to my body and my doctor and said, okay, I'm not going to do the run. The second piece of it is I was really starting to stress out about the swim piece of it. And suddenly today, I messaged my runner and I said, you know what? We're going to do a relay. Why don't we just pick somebody else to do the swim?
Yeah.
Why do I don't have to do that? Why don't I focus on what I really want to focus on?
Exactly.
And I think when you're working with teams and you're thinking about that, it's healthy at one moment to take a step back and say, wait, maybe it's time to empower somebody else to do that other piece of that role.
Exactly.
Which is grit and hard work.
Yep.
So, okay. We're like, it's my fault we're failing at this rapid fire.
Not so rapid fire.
I am guilty. Okay. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Probably Martin Luther King. And the reason is, I mean, number one, he was just brilliant. I mean, he was just brilliant. And the whole, this whole nonviolent strategy, which obviously he adopted from others, was absolutely brilliant. But what I loved about him was he was focused on uniting all groups of people and trying to figure out, how do I make, especially the people that were impoverished, how do we get them out of poverty? And so, I love that. I mean, that sort of, I've lived in 2 worlds. I mean, and going from, like overnight to having, seriously overnight, and which was crazy for me. to be able to say, okay, let's how do we help people and get people, I see that there is a bridge from one world to another.
Yes.
And that was all of his strategy. It was very much this sort of economic mobility piece. And that's incredibly important to me. And so I love to go back and pick his brain and just sort of hey, what would you have done if you had done what got you thinking in this way? I mean, he was 38 when he assassinated. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I feel like I've done nothing.
Right? Imagine what he could have done.
Just even a year or two more.
Right.
I mean, a decade more. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay. What is one thing you wish you knew at the start of your career? We kind of talked about this earlier. But.
Yeah. I mean, I think that piece, I'll just kind of restate it. It's that folks that you admire, that you look up to, are normal people that are just figuring it out just like you, right? And again, it takes 50 years to to realize that. Oh, really? But absolutely.
Amazing. Okay. One word to describe your leadership philosophy.
Collaborative.
Oh, I love it.
Collaborative. Yeah. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I don't have the ego where I need to be right at all, but I do want to make the right decision. And so I always try my best to make sure that folks that are on my team feel very comfortable. They feel like they belong. And once they get comfortable and feel like they belong, then they, like we were talking about earlier, then they speak up.
Yes.
Then they say, Raheem, what are you talking about? It makes no sense, right? I want my direct reports to say that in this room before I go out and say something that's wrong or totally doesn't make sense, right? And so how do we collaborate? First, I got to empower you, make you feel like you belong, because you do. Once you do that, you're comfortable. And then we leave the room with the best decision that was made.
Yeah. I like to reward people that speak up.
Yeah.
And even call them up and say, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, because, man, I was about to maybe make a mouse out of myself.
Oh, my God. That would have been bad. Thank you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I truly admire you. I have to tell you
well, it's mutual.
that when Gary May was leaving, I was just like, oh, my gosh, she's the best ever. No one's ever. And you've just really shown in your own unique, solid way.
Oh, thank you.
And I am grateful to have become your friend and to collaborate with you. And I
am grateful.
hope we get to for years to come.
Equally grateful. Well, thank you.
And thanks for absolutely bringing Badass to this podcast. I'm grateful for that as well.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thanks for joining me for today's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast. To hear more interviews with industry experts and learn how to grow your career and leadership potential, be sure to subscribe, and turn on notifications to ensure you do not miss future episodes. This podcast is a production of the AGN Group. To learn more about the AGN Group, visit our website at theagnGroup.com. There, you can discover more about our services, which include hosting workshops, management consulting, brand strategy, keynote speaking, and more. Follow us on all social media channels shown on the screen and displayed in the show notes. And until next week, be brave and be badass.